The views and opinions expressed on this program are not meant to alarm anyone, but merely start an intelligent discussion about an interesting phenomenon, the possibility that an intelligent life form does exist and is making active contact with the Earth.
Welcome to UFO Update Live. My name is Jerry Black, UFO researcher and investigator. Tonight our panel of UFO experts will discuss the mystery of the face on Mars. Originally photographed by the Viking spacecraft in the late 70s, the face was at first dismissed by most of the scientific community as a trick of light and shadow. Further investigation, however, revealed that the face and other apparent artificial structures could not be so easily dismissed. In recent years, sophisticated technology has been developed which enables us to determine whether structures on land are natural or man-made. Learn the surprising results which were revealed to researchers when these techniques were applied to the face on Mars. Remember, you can call our panel of experts with your question about the face. Call 651-1221. All this and more when we return with UFO Update Live, The Face on Mars, Part 2.
On August the 20th, 1975, NASA launched Viking 1. Its destination, Mars. The Viking 1 was equipped with a landing pod capable of photography, which would, for the first time, send back significant data from the surface of the red planet. The Viking 1's mission, to determine whether life in any form exists on Mars.
Even as far back as ancient history, man was fascinated by Mars because it has a very distinctive color. The sky, it's easily recognizable. And after the discovery of the telescope, it was recognized that Mars had clouds. There were dark and light areas which were thought to be land and sea. And so it was thought that Mars was very Earth-like. At the time that life was starting here on Earth, Earth and Mars may have been quite similar. And so there is a chance that life started on Mars. And as conditions changed, it failed to sustain itself on Mars.
Although the Viking missions did not discover life on Mars, they made other important finds. The orbiting Viking satellite sent out landing pods to descend on the planet. The pods registered temperatures varying between minus 225 degrees and 63 degrees above zero on the Fahrenheit scale. The pods and satellites also sent back amazing photographs of Mars's landscape. They showed a bleak topography like deserts on Earth, and spectacular bursts of light on the horizon at sunrise. Other features of Martian geography were strikingly similar to Earth's. Impressions of depleted rivers with thousands of tributaries. Extinct volcanoes, one of which is 3 times as tall as Mount Everest. 2 polar caps, where the ice is easily visible. And endless deserts, which some scientists believe are frozen seabeds, where the ice is covered with sand and dust. One of these deserts, Cydonia, has several intriguing features. These symmetrically formed mounds on the Cydonian desert seem to resemble the pyramids in Egypt. Their near-perfect proportions have roused the curiosity of many scientists. But even more curious than the pyramids is a sphinx-like formation 10 miles away. The face on Mars. What forces could have worked to create such a phenomenon? Could the face be the product of natural erosion? The symmetry of the face, the detail of its features, argue that its existence is not simply a caprice of nature. 2 years after the Viking mission, 2 computer engineers under contract to NASA noticed the face in a journal and began to dig through the original Viking photographs.
I did not think that it was really there because it looked too perfect like a face. I went to the National Space Science Data Center, and after doing a search, I found the picture right there in front of me and labeled head, and it was the picture of the face in Cydonia. So there was no mistaking that NASA had identified this picture as resembling the human form of a face.
Using a sophisticated computer technique to analyze the photographs, DePietro and his partner Gregory Molinar put the face under minute scrutiny.
After doing our enhancing techniques, we were able to bring out details that were much greater than the raw pictures that we had. Within the eye cavity of the feature, there appeared to be what looks like an eyeball.
Geologist Michael Carr, the leader of the Viking orbiter photographic team, believes that the face is merely an accident of nature.
I have found other pictures that look like other natural or unnatural things. There's a particularly amusing one of Kermit the Frog. It just looks like Kermit the Frog. And I can't myself place any scientific value to that any more than I can the face on Mars. It's just one of those oddities of nature, just as you see clouds assume certain shapes, Spanish galleons and so forth.
Interestingly, DePietro and Molinar found a second photograph, taken at a different time, which seemed to verify that the face looked exactly the same, regardless of the light or the camera angle.
After searching the files, we found that there was a picture made 35 days later. And not only did it confirm that the object was still there, but there was more detail to be seen.
I was very impressed because they had gone to the trouble of finding 2 photographs of the face, not just one. And I remember particularly being impressed by the fact that they appeared to have found what looked like an eyeball. You can see a dark depression in the middle of the eye socket on both pictures, clearly visible. And I remember thinking, well, if one finds something that looks like a carved face and one finds what looks like pyramids, then someone should look into it further.
Another computer scientist working independently used a different technique of photographic enhancement based on shadow depth. He found a detail in his copy of the Viking photos that the others had missed. Teeth.
I believe that we have raised an issue and that the scientific community should be compelled to look at this thing and say it is or it is not. We're merely saying, take a look at it. It certainly warrants investigation.
Welcome back to UFO Update Live. Tonight we're going to discuss in detail the face on Mars. But first I'd like to introduce my panel of UFO experts. First of all, we have Brian Skow, Pat Packard, and Terry Endress. Terry, before we move on, I'd like to clarify some details about the computer images on the face on Mars. And I understand you have an illustration which might help us do that.
Right. I have a reproduction here of the raw image of the original image from the Viking probes. And if you take a close look, you'll notice that it's made up of all kinds of small little squares. Well, these are called pixels. And if you notice these dead spots, that gives you a general idea of the size of these pixels. And the area they cover is a square that's 50 yards to a side. Now that's quite an area yet that's not in focus. So in effect, these pictures are what we would call a soft focus. They don't give us the kind of acute detail that we really need. The Mars observer was supposed to send back images down to a yard square, which is typically 50 times clearer than what we have now, and might have given us the kind of information we need to make a more intelligent analysis. But to this point, we have not heard from the Mars observer.
Thank you very much for that report, Terry. I really appreciate it. Brian, you've done a lot of work and research on the structures. Do you have any other way to make an analysis of these pictures? Could you explain that for us if you do?
Yeah, there is a new analysis that is used, and that's called the fractal analysis. And with the fractal analysis, we're able to tell whether something is natural from nature or if it's man-made or artificial. And this technique has been proven effective as far as locating tanks and battlefields with satellite photographs. And really to explain this better, I think we should look at a clip that we have prepared. So if we could, I'd like to roll into that now. Fractal analysis, as explained by Dr. Mark Carlotto in his book, The Martian Enigmas, A Closer Look, is simply a computer enhancement that tries to distinguish artificial from natural objects. This is easier to do on Earth since we already know the difference between natural and man-made structures and can design a computer program accordingly. However, it's different with Mars. We don't know enough about the variety of its natural surface features to formulate a comparative profile. Consequently, anything that appears to be artificial could simply be an unusual natural formation. Dr. Carlotto, using an improved modeling technique which appears to be 80% accurate, discovered that there were 4 objects that could be of alien structure. The order of which being, number 1, the face, number 2, the fort, number 3, the platform pyramid, and number 4 being a structure located near the city square. First, we take the original image. The face appears towards the top center. Here is the same image under fractal analysis. Notice that the face registers as a bright spot, which is typical of artificial structures. This, in conjunction with the mathematical analyses, forms the bulk of the science behind the face. One of the more intriguing models concerning the monuments of Mars is found in their mathematical redundancies. Here is a geometric diagram of the entire complex, showing all the angular relationships. Curiously, more in-depth analysis reveals that the mathematical constants pi and e are consistently repeated. Mathematical constants are numerical values that remain the same regardless of the number system used. Further study by Hoagland and other scientists has established a relationship between the Cydonia complex and ancient monuments on Earth. These similarities show up in the pyramids and Sphinx at Giza, Stonehenge and other British prehistoric sites, Mayan temples, and structures worldwide. To better understand the impact of this hypothesis, it is necessary to examine the ancient Sumerian culture, the foundation of our own Western civilization. Does this mean there is an earthly connection to the face on Mars? Are we only rediscovering the messages encoded in the Cydonia complex? Can we find the answers in our own past?
Brian, who are these ancient Sumerians, and how did these ancient people fit into this mystery?
Well, the Sumerians almost seem to come out of nowhere. About 5,500 years ago in Sumer, which is the lower part of Iraq, it was almost as if man had come out of a Stone Age and gone directly into a high-tech civilization, which the Sumerians, they had a great knowledge about astronomy and mathematics and medicine, and what researchers have discovered, that they really gave us the foundation for many religions. And one thing that they had discovered with their astronomy was that they knew of planets that we hadn't even discovered until just recently, within the past couple hundred years, like the planets of Pluto and Neptune and Uranus, and they even described their appearance and everything. So it's almost, I don't know, it's pretty unbelievable that a civilization would just come out of nowhere with that type of knowledge, and we're still using that knowledge today.
And obviously, if they had that knowledge, they must have lost it, because later on that knowledge was not there.
Right, and it's like we're rediscovering it. And again, I think we have another video that would explain this better, so if we could roll this video on the Sumerians, that'd be great.
In ancient Mesopotamia, the secrets of celestial knowledge, of astronomy, were guarded, studied, and carefully handed down by astronomer priests. They often kept this special knowledge on cylinder seals like this one. This clay tablet is the print of a seal about 4,500 years old. It depicts the scene of the god Enlil granting to mankind the plough, the beginning of modern agriculture. But very interestingly, we see at the top here, as the background of the cylinder seal, a depiction of the complete solar system, with the sun in the center, and all of the planets we know of in their correct order, with their correct sizes. Plus, one more planet, which is still unknown to modern science, but is being actively searched for, because it does exist, as astronomers now concur with ancient knowledge. The heavens bespeak the glory of the Lord, and the vault of heaven reveals his handiwork. In August 1977, the American space probe Voyager 2 left Cape Canaveral on a journey that would eventually take it, several years later, to the vicinity of our solar system's outermost planets. What Voyager discovered once it arrived there fully corroborates ancient knowledge.
Oh my God, for the first time man is actually seeing Uranus. And it is exactly as the Sumerians had described it 6,000 years ago. Yes, no doubt, though they had no telescope.